Actually, Korea has been recognized as one of the countries that successfully managed the two crises, 1997 Asian economic crisis and 2009 global financial crisis. We have learned from this previous experience that regulatory reform could be very effective in addressing the crisis. And this lesson still holds true in our efforts to tackle the current economic downturn. And my presentation today will focus on the regulatory reform efforts we have made to address these challenges. Finally, firstly, I'll briefly cover the economic challenges we faced and the driving force behind our full-scale reform. I will highlight the key reform strategies and tools we adopted. Finally, I'll try to draw out some key lessons from the reform experience. It's well known that Korea has made a success story of economic growth led by the government. The annual GDP growth rate averaged 8% for 30 years between 1963 and 1993. However, the economic growth model has become very ineffective with its economic size and volume getting larger. And the financial crisis in 1997 was a very turning point. It involved a severe recession, which decreased output by 7%. So we felt we need a change, a shift in the growth paradigm to market-oriented from government-led economic growth. So the full-scale regulatory reform was launched as a new developmental strategy. The focus has been on reducing the government intervention in the market and recovering market function. So, in 1997, the full-scale structural reform was launched. Through the workout, many unhealthy financial companies were forced out of the markets, including 600 non-viable financial institutions, which was around 30% of the total financial institutions at the time. A very painful process. The so-called big deal among the big businesses proved also effective, with those surviving, the Samsung, including Samsung and Hyundai and LG, eventually growing into global business with the competitiveness. And in terms of regulatory reform, the Korean government took the so-called the guillotine approach. The 50% of reduction of the whole stocks of regulations. Very ambitious plan have been made. After reviewing all the existing stocks of regulations, the ambitious target of 50% reduction of the whole stocks of regulations was set up and accomplished in about 2 years' time. Also, the institutional setting, the legal and institutional frameworks were also established. The basic act on administrative regulations, we say the bar, and the regulatory reform bodies, regulatory reform committee, WRC, and WRO, regulatory reform office, were also established this time. This should be the backbone of our system. Also in 2009, the reform measures were similar. The stimulus packages and structural reform in a timely manner. And in terms of regulatory reform, the TRR, which means the temporary regulatory relief, and the regulatory reform for new growth engine program was also implemented. I will illustrate it later in detail. So I made this comparison through the diagram. If you see this diagram, so the reforms brought significant benefits, actually. Korea succeeded in repaying the IMF bailout fund in 3 years after the financial crisis of 1997, which was much earlier than expected. And in 2009, we were also able to, we could turn the economy back on track in a year, recovering to the pre-crisis level in 2009. Yeah, we are facing new challenges again. The global economy is experiencing a slow recovery, but it is still in the midst of rising uncertainty. The US Federal Reserve interest rate hike, China's sluggish economic growth rate, and international terrorist threats. So, in order to tackle these economic challenges, the Korean government has launched full-scale reform as ever. As you see, the active fiscal and monetary policies, also 4 major structural reforms, including labor, finance, public sector, and education. Also, regulatory reform for its takeoff. She is our president, President Park. So now I would like to explain our strategies and tools for the reforms. First of all, the strong commitment to the reform from the top leadership. Since March 2014, the newly launched regulatory reform ministerial meeting, we say RRMM, is presided by President herself. And business people, civilian experts, general public, and related ministers participate in this meeting. It's a very powerful organization. This is about institutional setting, design. As an advocacy and oversight body, as I mentioned before, RRO and RRC is important in Korean system. Particularly the RRC of Korea is peculiar in that it possesses the legal right, authority to review and new and reinforced regulations, whole stocks of regulation actually. And its recommendations are mandatory and have legally binding power. Without approval by this organization, any bill, any legislation is not possible. So, this makes this institution a very important body in the Korean policy-making process. It's not like the advisory bodies of other nations. It's different. And in 2013, with the advent of the Park government, the newly launched regulatory reform ministerial meeting, RRMM, has focused on improving the regulations with large ripple effects. And RRO, in the Prime Minister's office, is a supervisor and coordinator for this reform. And each ministry is supposed to hand out regulatory improvement plans and report the progress. And RRO monitors and the progress on a monthly basis and evaluates the improvement measures. So RRO also plays the role of secretariat of RRC, and the newly launched RRMM. This is our strategy. First of all, setting up a clear and quantitative target. In 1998, the target of 50% reduction of all the existing stocks of regulations was set up. And in 2008, 40%. And in 2013, the target of 10% reduction of the whole stocks of regulations was set up. Secondly, the whole of government approach. We extended the scope of oversight to the regulations of local government, actually, in an effort, this is to reduce inconsistency across the regions. It's very important job we need to do. And so we expanded the capacity building programs aiming at enhancing the implementation behavior of the frontline civil servants and practice. Finally, the public-private partnership. The private sector these days are another driver for reform. Particularly the businesses and civic groups provide criticism and very constructive suggestions through the whole regulatory process, including regulatory review, revision, and evaluation. And this has proved a good strategy to gain support for reform. The Korean government has been running consultative channels with 5 largest businesses, and also the foreign businesses in Korea, including Amcham and UCCK. So, this is another tool. This is regulatory information portal. This offers all the information on the whole regulatory process in a single window. In particular, by adopting the regulatory petition system called Shinmungo, anybody can directly present their own regulatory petitions or proposals and have very speedy feedbacks. I'll make it shorten to see this. Just 14 days. Each ministry is to respond within 14 days after receiving the petitions. It's very fast track. Also, the regulatory information portal for foreign investors was also introduced here. So, if you see here, regulatory reform Simongo or legislative information and improvement cases, you can check it out through this slide. It's another slide in detail. The same petition process for Koreans applies to foreign agencies. Yeah. This is about local government. I presume there should be some representatives from many people from Sarawak state government here. It's just for reference. Actually, we are collecting more than 6,000 cases of local regulations, which is inconsistent with central laws and ordinances. This is after a survey on 11 major categories of local regulations, including construction, land, industry, and environment. Along with that, we encourage the behavioral changes in the field by exempting active civil servants from any sort of disciplinary actions or audit consultations. This is an online system to connect all the local regulations with central laws. So this is the job of KLRI. So actually, it's a very good, nice system. If you see the central laws, and it's connected to the local levels regulations, it's very easy to grasp the whole stocks of regulations in Korea. So anybody can easily identify the local regulations and their ground articles in central laws through this website. Also, we announced this part. Oh yes, I'm not used to this equipment. We announced and improved results and rankings of local governments here. And this made big changes actually. This is to promote competition among local governments. You see it here. Oops. Still, I'm not good at it. You see, it's just in 1 year's time, big changes. This regulatory map shows levels of business friendliness of local governments. And you can see here how it's an announcement to encourage competition among local governments. After announcement, do you see the change of the color here? The grade, the A grade or S grade. So sharply increase it from 68 to 155 local governments. Yes. This is a recent development, which we are devising at the moment. Actually, we did this TRR program, Temporary Regulatory Relief Program, in 2009. It was a big success. We are doing this again to tackle the current economic downturn. So, the concept is to freeze or ease the current regulations on a temporary basis until a point of economic recovery. Then this TRR is a very short-term strategy to support the demand in the recession. So we focus on regulations with immediate effects on investment and easily amendable ones, that is, ordinances and decrees. Because laws, because of politicians, it's not easy to get it through in the parliament. So we need speedy action. That's why we're focusing on this TRR program. So, if you say, sorry, Honorable Chancellor. So if you say TRR program is an emergency measure for immediate crisis control, this regulatory reform for new growth engine industries aims at building up the mid to long-term growth platform. First of all, we established the new industry committee, which is composed of around 67 civilian experts. They're all civilians. The purpose of this committee is to ensure that regulatory proposals on the new industry are addressed by civilian experts, not by the government. Moreover, so we selected 8 promising new industries like drone, unmanned vehicles, and IoT, Internet of Things, and smart automobiles, and biopharmaceutics, biohealth actually. They made it small. Biohealth and 3D printing, and big data, clouding, and all-to-all. So our aim is to minimize regulations and set up new regulatory framework for new industry. Yes, this shows how our NIC, I say NIC, New Industry Committee, league works. But I'll skip this part for the sake of time, because Secretary asked me to make it quicker. Okay. So let's go straight to the conclusion. Yes. To sum up my presentation, some lessons can be drawn out from the reform experience. First of all, a strong support from the top leadership and the public is a driving force for structural reform, for successful reform. And the newly launched RRMM, Regulatory Reform Ministerial Meeting, plays a strong driver for reform these days, which ensures commitment to the reform from the top leadership. Secondly, the well-designed institutional setting does matter, because it serves as an efficient managerial tool for oversight body. Particularly, the legal and institutional power of regulatory oversight bodies have proven to be an efficient system for reform. The RRC of Korea is unique in that it possesses, as I said, legal right to review all draft regulations, and also RRO. And the monitoring system and the management tools have been efficient tools to keep reform going forward. Particularly ICT tools like regulatory information system inside the government, also regulatory information portal to the public. And thirdly, the reform strategies. The whole of government approach and public-private partnership keep up momentum for reform. The private sector, as I said, is now another driver for reform and providing feedbacks about the whole regulatory process. All these promote cultural change and reform mindsets of government sector. So, and I think it is important to set up, define the clear and quantitative targets and support them by clear action plans. And lastly, but not least, Korea has accommodated the global standards and market principles as a criteria of regulatory review and revision, which I think helped a lot to enhance transparency and market openness. Yes, that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.